Air Canada is one of the best airlines in North America, but what if I told you they had a dirty little secret? Well, a ton of people don't realize that Air Canada also has a smaller airline called Rouge, which tends to be quite controversial, especially when people don't realize that this is what they're going to be flying instead of the main airline.
Now, if you have no idea what Air Canada Rouge is, it's pretty much their vacation leisure airline underneath Air Canada. So it's a little bit cheaper and the experience is supposed to be a little bit worse than the normal Air Canada. But last night I was able to do the check-in process and thankfully it actually ended up going super well.
So after getting the check-in email, I was brought to the main menu where I was then able to go in and select my seat for the flight. After that, I had to agree to not having any dangerous or prohibited items, fill in where I'd be staying in America, and finally, after confirming I was only bringing a carry-on bag, I was all checked in and ready to go.
So luckily we were able to get a window seat, but now that we're all checked in, we're gonna go head inside the terminal and go and get our boarding pass.
Now in Toronto, Air Canada and Star Alliance Airlines all fly out of Terminal 1, and today turned out to be insanely busy at the airport. And luckily, I found these two unused kiosks for people requiring assistance, but since nobody was there, I went ahead and made my way through the various menus, scanned my passport for verification, but after getting my boarding pass, I noticed a slight issue.
Okay, so we were able to get our boarding pass, but when I was looking at it, it said that boarding time is 10:10 and departure is 10:50, which is weird because the original flight time was supposed to be at 9 a.m. in the morning, which is why I was here so early. So now that the flight has been delayed almost 2 hours, we're gonna have a lot of time to kill. So I guess the next steps here is we're gonna head through security, go chill in the lounge, and then we're gonna figure out what else to do because we have about 3.5 hours until our flight. Not a very good start to this trip.
And unfortunately, things are only gonna get worse from here. But before that, I made my way to the security line, used my Amex card to fast pass by everyone, and soon enough, I was through security and in the main terminal.
So that was possibly the worst security experience I have ever had. First of all, I did get super lucky bypassing it with my Amex card, but on the downside, I got checked by security yet again, and then after I was doing a Nexus interview, which got completely messed up. But now that we're finally through security, I think we should head to the lounge because I am starving.
Today, we're gonna be checking out the Plaza Premium Lounge thanks to my Amex benefits. Right off the bat, I noticed this lounge was definitely on the smaller side, and it felt quite claustrophobic because there were barely any windows or views, but at least there was a decent amount of seating. For breakfast, I had the choice of cereal, eggs, potatoes, beans, sausages, brownies, various different salads, and different baked goods. As for the drinks, there was coffee, soft drinks, and an entire open bar serving morning alcohol. So I decided to load up, and overall the food was half decent. Now after finishing my meal, I decided to take a quick nap before waking up to a cockroach on the floor, and after looking at the flight board, I noticed I had gotten a text saying that my flight had been delayed even further.
So overall, the lounge was pretty okay. The staff were super nice, but it was extremely small. There were no windows whatsoever for some reason. And to make matters even worse, while I was in the lounge, I got another text message saying that my flight had been delayed until 11:25. So that means my original flight that was supposed to leave at 9 a.m. has now been delayed over 2.5 hours. So fingers crossed that the flight's gonna be good because so far we're off to a terrible start.
And now I wanted to see exactly what was going on, so I made my way to the gate and nobody was there. So after checking the board for a new boarding time, I decided to go find somewhere else to wait.
Okay, so apparently the flight had been delayed because they needed to get a substitute aircraft, which I guess means that the original plane broke down. And I guess from the original delay until now, they couldn't get the proper plane or they were trying to source it somewhere, but regardless, we finally have one. But anyways, while we're waiting here for the flight, I thought that now would be a great time to tell you guys a little bit more about Air Canada Rouge, because even though it has Air Canada in the title, it's way different than you would expect.
Right off the bat, TripAdvisor gave Rouge 3 out of 5 stars, while Skytrax decided to give them a 3 out of 10 rating. Now, according to this article, Rouge's main purpose is for leisure passengers going on vacation, where the main differences between them and normal Air Canada are in the in-flight entertainment and movie selection, the fact Rouge has no outlets compared to the main airline, the seats are way more crowded, and the flight crew tend to be younger and more casual. Now, as for the customer reviews, things are definitely mixed, with some people saying that Air Canada Rouge is horrible, that they have questionable customer service, and that the seats are super tight unless you're in premium. And even then, the reviews that are higher rated still say things like they could be uncomfortable on longer flights, so it'll be interesting to see what they are really like.
So after having a pretty bad start to the day, it is finally time to board the plane so we could see what Air Canada Rouge is actually like. And hopefully it's decent considering everything that's happened so far.
So as I was making my way back to the gate, I noticed the plane coming in, so I hiked my way through the airport, but things didn't get better when I eventually made it to the gate. And that's because once I got there, it turned out the flight had been delayed yet again, and it's safe to say that some of the passengers were starting to get pretty upset.
So it is now 11 o'clock, and apparently we got delayed even further because maintenance is on board the plane and they won't let us board. They didn't exactly tell us what the issue was, they just said that they'll keep us posted. So hopefully the flight doesn't get canceled.
And at this point, practically everyone that was scheduled for this flight was up and wondering exactly what was going on. And after a little bit more commotion, I finally got an email saying it was time to board the flight.
Hi there.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, yourself.
Pretty good.
All right, enjoy.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Up to this point, it's safe to say that things got off to a pretty rough start, but the most important thing is the flight itself. So now it's time to see how things go. But first, I gotta tell you about something I've been working on. So over the last few weeks, I've been building a newsletter and blog called Nomad to Luxury. And instead of taking a sponsor on this video, I thought I'd tell you about that instead. Nomad to Luxury is gonna have everything travel. It's gonna have behind the scenes information that might not make it into my videos, full written travel reviews, points hacking, crazy destinations you need to visit, and pretty much anything you could think of. But now the best part about all of this is I am making it completely free. That's right, there is no paywall whatsoever. It's completely free, and all you have to do is sign up with the link down in the description. Once a week, I'm gonna be sending out a newsletter, but every few days, I'm gonna be writing different blog articles that you guys can read and enjoy. And right now, things are just starting off, but over the next few weeks, I want this to be another way to connect with you guys and grow this community. But again, if you guys want to sign up for my newsletter, Nomad to Luxury, click the link down in the description. And hopefully you guys find it just as cool as I do. But anyways, let's get back to the video and see what Air Canada Rouge is really like. After boarding the plane, I made my way through the cabin where I was able to get a good look at the seating layouts before getting to where I'd be sitting for today's flight. Right off the bat, the first thing I noticed was the seats was how true the reviews were, because being only 5'8", my knees were practically touching the seat in front. So I could only imagine what this would be like for anybody taller than me. As for the seat itself, after doing the initial comfort test, things didn't seem to be too bad whatsoever. And overall, I'd have to say that things were definitely on the comfier side.
Alright, so far things are way tighter than I expected. I am only 5'8", and there is pretty much no legroom. It's pretty comparable to like Ryanair, Spirit, or any other budget airline, which is surprising because it is Air Canada. As for the seats, things are pretty comfortable so far, but again, we're gonna have to wait and see for the rest of the flight because things usually change. I forgot to mention that before the flight, I paid for like a $10 food voucher, so it's gonna be really interesting to see what the meal is like, especially since it's been like 4 or 5 years since the last time I flew on Air Canada economy. And for today's flight, apparently it is supposed to be completely full. So fingers crossed, nothing else goes wrong.
Now making my way under the seat, the good news continued because there was plenty of space for bags both there and in the overhead bins, which was nice to see. And on top of that, it was a huge plus to see that the seats are actually able to recline, which tends to be rare on these leisure airlines. Another thing that also surprised me was that the seats were pretty clean compared to some of the other airlines that I've been on. And making my way to the reading lamp above, it was nice to see that that and the air conditioning were both working. But anyways, unfortunately, this is where the good news would be ending, because I got another text saying the flight had been delayed yet again. And after waiting around for about 20 minutes longer, finally, we began pushing back from the gate. For today's flight, I'm going to be flying about 3.5 hours from Toronto to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And after making it to the runway, soon enough, it was time for takeoff. Now that we were in the air, I decided to look around and check out the seats some more, starting with the pouch, which had some pretty decent space. The first thing I saw was the safety pamphlet, which was in good condition and also super easy to read before moving on to the in-flight menu. To be quite honest, Air Canada has a pretty good selection of meals to choose from, with breakfast options, snacks, and all of the various different meals you could order. And to be honest, the pricing was quite fair. After that, I decided to check out the tray table, which is definitely on the larger side, and to make things even better, it had a pull-out game just as strong strong as me. Now, since I ordered my meal voucher, I was able to get 2 snacks plus a pizza for only $10. And on top of that, I was also able to get it before everyone else, including my drinks. And overall, the meal was incredibly good for economy class food.
So if you are ever flying Air Canada, I highly recommend the pizza because that was a solid 9 out of 10. Now when I was booking my flight, there was an option to buy a meal voucher for $10, and I highly recommend getting this if you're planning on getting food on the flight anyways, because I was able to get my meal and 2 snacks for $10, and without that, it would have been like $25 total. Also, a cool little life hack that I figured out on planes is that you could order a soft drink plus water, so make sure you give this a try because you will thank me later. But anyways, we're only about a quarter way through the flight, and so far things are pretty good, but we still have about 2 more hours to go, so let's see what things are like by the end of the flight.
Now that I was all done my meal, it was time to check out the bathroom, and after getting inside, it was pretty standard with everything you would typically expect. Fairly clean, and overall there was some solid headroom too. But now after making it back to my seat, I remembered something I probably should have mentioned earlier. So if you've flown Air Canada or Rouge recently, it's very likely you've experienced delays just like me, but I had heard a rumor as to why this is. Apparently during the pandemic, Air Canada laid off a vast majority of its staff and also converted some of their passenger aircraft to cargo. And because of this and travel demand exceeding expectations, they've been unable to convert planes back to passenger, and they also haven't hired the staff back in time to meet the demand.
Okay, so the pilot just came on the overhead saying there's only 30 minutes left in the flight, which is super surprising. Honestly, I was pretty sure we had at least an hour and a half left because this has been flying by. Normally when I fly on airlines, by this point my back is absolutely destroyed. For example, I did this exact same trip from Toronto to Fort Lauderdale on Flair, and at this point my back was hurting, but so far in this seat, it's actually really comfortable. And going back to earlier, I think the main complaint that I do have about these seats is you do not have any leg room. For someone who is only 5'8", my knees are touching the back of the seat, so if you're any taller than me, you're gonna have an uncomfortable time. But since there's only 20 minutes left in the flight, the next thing we have to see is if it's gonna be a comfortable landing, and we're supposed to be doing it during a thunderstorm, so this is going to be interesting.
And the thing about flying to Florida is you really never know what the weather is going to be like, because as we began our approach into Fort Lauderdale, it appeared the storm had already passed, so we were able to come in for landing. So now the big question remains, is Air Canada Rouge really as bad as what people say? Well, besides the crazy amount of delays and terrible legroom, I'd have to say they're pretty decent. And overall, I'd give them a solid 7 out of 10. But if you enjoyed this video, watch this one next where I flew Air Canada first class.